What's up? What's up? What's up? It's a Saturday afternoon in the MIA, and it's another Dynasty Life Miami podcast. This your boy B up in the house with my dog JP. What's up, brother?
What's going on, brother? Another beautiful day in the MIA for sure. Getting ready to do a little something different today, so get ready, folks.
That's right, man. We got an exciting show for everybody. We're taking a break on specific player discussions, and we thought it was time to discuss how to look at your teams and determine if you're a contender or if you're a pretender, and you got to hit that rebuild button, bro. So that's one of the most important aspects of Dynasty is knowing when to push your chips all in or when to pull the plug and get out the way and rebuild your team and get it restacked up quickly. Because if you wait too long, your rebuild is going to take longer than a year or 2 years. You're going to be in a hole for a long time. So I think it's a super important topic to discuss. I think I'm excited for this show. I think it's going to be one of our better shows that we've had. But as always, man, before we jump into the information, let's go with the socials, bro. Tell them how to find us, how to find you, bro.
On Twitter, you can find us on Dynasty Life MIA, and you can find me on my personal at Salazar305. And you can find Brandon at Uncommon Sense. Spell it out for him, Brandon.
That's right. UNCOMMANSENSE, bro. And of course, the hot spot, the spot where we get a lot of the traffic and you get a lot of the information. You go follow us on that YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. All one word, Dynasty Life Miami. JP's always chopping shit up and putting it in there for you to listen to. So without further ado, man, let's jump right in. We're going to talk first about contenders. We're going to break it down. For me, just briefly, I think you should be looking at your Dynasty teams at a minimum on 3 different occasions. And when I say 3 different occasions, I think you got to, right away when the offseason starts, you want to check out your team, see where it is versus the league. Preseason, check out your team, see how the rookies, any injuries, and also, and of course, where we're going to talk about today, the mid-season, that week 5, week 6 window, sometimes week 4, depending on your league. You're going to want to check your teams out. So what we're going to do for the purpose of this show, we're going to focus really, because this is the season we're in, we're going to focus on the mid-season, the week 4, 5, 6 window on deciding if you are a contender or a pretender. Before we jump in, before I talk on my side, man, I wanted to get your take. This is exciting because we talk about players all the time, but you and me have really never discussed, how we view teams, how we're determining contenders versus not. So I think this is going to be, we're going to be spilling some secrets here that the world's going to find out. So tell us, man, what are you looking for when you're checking out your team to determine if you feel that you are a contender or if you should hit that rebuild button? When are you looking and what are you looking for?
Well, first of all, record is important. If your record sucks, that's going to be the first thing that's going to tell you that you need to rebuild. But for me is the depth of your team. You know what I'm saying? Do you have depth? Yeah, you got the starting lineup, but do you have depth to get you through the injuries? We have a lot of injuries in the NFL, and you can have a very good starting lineup, but when those injuries start piling up and you don't have really feelings for those injuries, those one of the big things that you need to be looking at. Depth is the name of the game, whether it be rookies in your taxi squads, people coming off of IR, whatever it is, or the free agency. You need to be on top of your free agency all the time because that may save your season. But at the end of the day, it's your record. Do you have depth at every position? If something happens, do you have somebody to fill in? If not, you're probably going to end up getting waxed after the first round of the playoffs, if you even make it past the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely record, right? That's a good starting point, right? But I think for me, I dive a little deeper, right? Because you can be 1-4, right? And you can look at your team and you're like, dude, this team is stacked. How am I 1-4? We've all been there, right? We all have those 0-4 teams or those 1-4 teams that we're just like, how is this team 1-4? So what I look for when I'm determining if it's the team or if it's something else, I'm looking at all play record. All right. That's especially in MFL sites, you can see what your record would be versus everybody else. So when you're looking at that, you could have just run into some really good teams that are hot, and that's why your records are a certain way. So all play record is super important, because if you look at your all play record and you would actually have beaten every other team, it's just you ran into a perfect storm of 3 teams hitting their highest score, then it's not time to pull the plug yet. Even if you're 1-4, you have a chance to turn it around. Another one I look for, the other 2 ones is points for and points against. Again, what is your average points for? If you look at certain leagues right now that we're in together, JP, I'm like a fourth place or fifth place, but I have one of the highest points for, and but also one of the highest points against. So what that means is that I got people in front of me with better records, but they're averaging maybe 125 points, and I'm averaging 150 points a game. So what that tells me is the people ahead of me are actually the pretenders. I'm still a strong contender. You just got to play out the season a little more. You got to have trust in the team that you built together, you put together, and view it as that in that aspect of it. You don't want to go selling the farm or blowing it up just yet, because luck is a big part of fantasy football, and so we have to be prepared for that aspect of it.
No, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. That's what I was going to say too, is points scored and points against. If you see that you're scoring a lot of points, you may not even be in fourth place. You might be like in seventh, sixth place because of you running into hot teams. But if you can actually get to the playoffs, remember, once the playoffs start, everything starts all over again. The point is to get to the playoffs. So let's say you don't start the season off too hot, but you end up making the playoffs and you end up going into the season hot. You may win the league because of that. I've had instances where there's been I've been hot all season long. You know what I'm saying? And I've had a good record in South Florida, one of the leagues that we're in. I think I won the last like 9 games in a row, went into the playoffs hot, lost in the first round of the playoffs. So it's you saying it's about luck. Luck has a lot to do with it, but I'm just saying, if your team is scoring points and more than the teams in front of you, you cannot pull the plug. You have to ride it out. Whether your league is the top 6 or whether your league is top 8, you got to keep your eye on that. But if you're scoring points, but they're just, you're running into hot teams, that's definitely not the time to pull the plug. If you could just make it to the playoffs, you may end up winning it just because you're scoring and you're averaging more points than the guys in front of you.
Yeah. And that's the aspect of it, right? You gotta look at a bigger picture. Record is important, but we have to look at the dynamics of how that record came about, right? Maybe your guy was injured. One of your major players was injured in the beginning of the season, and you're a little low, right? But that person's coming back, right? So you gotta take that into account. So let me ask you, what do you consider a contending team? I know you talked about record one way or the other, but when you're looking at the other teams in your league, what do you consider yourself a contender? Is if you look at it and you feel that you're a top 3, a top 2, a top 5 team, what is your goal? When you're looking at your team, what do you consider your team as a contender? How do you look at it that way?
Well, to be honest with you, because of what I just said, it doesn't matter, bro. To me, the point is to make the playoffs. You can have an all right record. You can go into the playoffs going 8-6 or 7-7. Let's just say an example, and you can win if you're going into the playoffs hot. I look in my quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and in some instances kickers and the defenses, because I'm in some leagues too where I still have to start defenses and kickers, and I'm looking at the points that they're putting up. Is it consistent? Is it a 1 week yes or 1 week no? You know what I'm saying? Do you have answers if you have to bench a certain type of player? You also have to players out there. I'll give you a perfect example right now. Allen Robinson is not really producing right now. You know what I'm saying? He's a top tier guy, but sometimes you got to bench these guys. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not producing, and that's very hard. That's very hard to do, and these are one of the things that might get you to be a contending team when you make these tough decisions. You know what I'm saying? To start let's say I'll give you an example, a Kadarius Toney over Allen Robinson, because let's just say how it is. That Bears offense is a total mess. These are things, because there's a lot of times where you have the points and you're accumulating the points, but they're on the bench because you're not willing to make these type of moves. So these are the type of things that make you a contender. Even when your team's not scoring points, do you have the balls to bench certain type of players in top tiers to put hot players in and get you to the playoffs? Those are things that matter. Those are things that play into account. Sometimes players like Allen Robinson don't produce. Is it Allen Robinson's fault? No, it's not Allen Robinson's fault at all. It's just that offense is just one big mess. That team is just being malcoached from the preseason till now. It's just been one big mess. And, you just got to wait to see if he starts producing. But if you got the balls to pull a move like that, that's what makes your team a contender sometimes, even if you don't have the best looking roster. but you might have some sleepers and might have some diamonds in the roughs sitting in your taxi, sitting in your bench, and you're just not starting them because because they don't have the name yet. That's another way to contend, in my opinion.
No, it is. I mean, that's I wrote this down for something else, but I think it matches with what you're saying. No risk it, no biscuit, bro. Right? Like you gotta take a chance, dude. Like the people who win, just like in anything in life in general, right? Dude, the people who take the chances, the people who risk, no reward. You gotta sometimes roll that dice, because if you do the safe thing, maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't, but sometimes the safe play ain't the right play, right? It's just gonna make you feel better, and you gotta take a risk. Another interesting thing that you said, I think I play it differently when I'm a contender. Like when I'm looking at a team to see if my team is contending, I don't want to slip into the playoffs in the fifth or sixth place. I'm looking at my team and I'm looking at the teams around me. I'm trying to see, one, am I a top 3 team in the league? And even if I'm a top 3 team, is the guy who's first light years better? You could be top 3, but the top 2 or the main guys got all the players. So top 3 can mean a lot less in certain leagues. I'm looking at the teams around me and I'm seeing, do they have injury problems? Is the top team now all of a sudden got some of their best players going down? And even though their record says 5-1 or 4-0 or whatever, is it really going to be 4-0 anymore if they've just lost? David Montgomery's gone down. Now Nick Chubb has gone down. Chris Carson's going down. So all these people who are now 4-0, 5-0, 4-1, they're probably not going to be that by in the next 2 weeks. So does that open up a window for my team? Is my team good enough with those teams having injuries to jump up? So that's how I look at it. I don't like to slip into the playoffs. For me, we're going to talk about it a little bit in the rebuild league. But like my boy Ricky Bobby said, bro, if I'm not first, I'm last, bro. I'd rather be the last place team and get all the players and picks in a rebuild than be fighting every year for fifth round, fifth place, sixth place, trying to get into the playoffs. Because like you said, you can get hot. It could happen. But what I found is more often than not, if you're the 6th seed or you're the 5th seed, you might get hot and you could win. But the probability is you're going to get bounced out of the first or second round of the playoffs. And all you've done is screw up your draft order. And that's just the way I always look at it.
Well, I've to be honest with you, I've made the playoffs in the last seed and beat the first seed. And once
I'm not saying it's not possible.
Oh no, yeah, it's definitely possible. But I'm saying there's that instance, like when you beat, like let's say you make it to the playoffs and like last seed and you end up beating the first seed. That's I mean, the probability of that happening is slim. That doesn't happen at all too many times. But if you do that, that's a good chance of you, of like, that's just a scenario that I'm saying that coming in 6th maybe is not so bad. But obviously, I'd rather be top 3 too, bro. Like you already got the statistics. You already know who you're beating. You already know who you're not beating. You already know who you're facing in the playoffs once you make the playoffs as the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd seed. So, it all helps, and you're probably beating your first opponent in the playoffs. So I agree with you 100%.
Sure. And so now let's go into this now. We've decided, you've looked at your team, and we have decided that we are contenders. Your team is ready to make a run. Either you feel like you have the depth in your pace where you feel you have the depth to withstand something, or you're looking at the other teams in my place and I feel like, okay, I can make a run. There's some weakness on the top, or I am at the top. What are some of the things that you're doing once you said, okay, I'm a contender? What are some of the things that you start doing around this time of the season to start cementing that top spot, or to go all in, or to try to even upgrade your seeding in the league? What are some of the things that you do?
Well, first things first, if I'm really contending, let's say I'm top 2 or I'm in the 1st place, I'm putting my first round draft pick for sale. I'm trying to acquire another player of consequence that's going to help me cement it even more. Let's just say I finish runner up. That's going to be a 111. I win the Super Bowl. That's going to be a 112. I'll trade a 111 or a 112, even a 110 to win a championship any day, my man.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's the first thing you're doing. You got to go shopping, right? Now, the key is, and this is where it gets risky, at least for me. you've seen it. You see the way I play. I
Yep.
throw picks around like they don't mean anything to me when I'm a contender, right? You've
Yes,
seen
sir.
it before. I mean, we're in one league together where I don't have any 2022 or 2023 picks. I got shit, right? But
Yeah.
but
But
I'm
you're
going for
winning.
back-to-back championships, right? That's the name of the game.
There you go.
So and what I do is, and some deals work out, some deals don't. But I've always found the sooner you do it, the better. Okay, at least from my aspect of it. Once teams start realizing that they could possibly be contenders, then that's when the bidding war starts. All right. So you for me, I like to be more aggressive. I'm going to look at my teams. I'm doing a deeper breakdown. I'm assuming like a lot of people are just looking at record or they're waiting for a certain sign for them to go all in. And I'm doing it a complete different way. By week 3, week 4, I'm buying depth like you're talking about. Key, right? You're getting those cheap depth pieces for cheap, so that to handle bye weeks before people open their eyes and realize, oh shit, I don't have enough people to cover my bye weeks. Before the injuries happen and players become less and less available. So I'm being super aggressive. I'm buying pieces left and right, and it can come at a risk, right? You can end up buying a player at the peak of his ability, like you buy a player who's hot, and as soon as you get him, boom, he's cooling off all of a sudden. You could buy a guy who, and all of a sudden they get injured. It
Yep.
happens, but that's gonna happen all the time. But like I said earlier, no risk it, no biscuit, bro. For me, picks shouldn't matter at this point. It's all about the championships, and the beauty is, and we've talked about this before. The beauty is, if you do it right, and you're not just buying a bunch of old people. You can do that too for cheap, but you're buying some guys that are still going to have value. You can end up retooling and rebuilding quickly on the fly the next season if it doesn't work out. You know what I mean? You can buy, like, now's the time to buy a Mike Williams. Even though you're buying high, he's an older veteran, so you can buy it from one of those teams that are not contending. You can buy a Keenan Allen who's about to be 30 years old. Okay, you can buy players like that. Before Chris Carson got injured, he was a good trade target. No one could see a neck injury happening. But again, injuries are happening to all the running backs. So, but those are the type of players that you can be shooting for. And then, whatever happens at the end of the year, you can retool it, flip some of them to get some of your draft picks back. But you know what, man? A 2022 pick that you're going to pick a rookie next year is not going to help you win a championship this year. And you got to keep your eye on the prize.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And another thing is, even though you're winning and you're breezing through everything and everything's going good, bro, keep your eyes on the free agency. Look, I'll give you a perfect example right now. C.O. Jones-Drew, person you can pick up for depth. Alex Collins, the running back for the Seahawks, which I've picked up in various leagues. I saw this coming before a lot of people, and I got to jump on him on a couple of leagues. And this guy's gonna end up getting all the carries that Carson's getting. You know what I'm saying? And he's fresh legs off free agency, super cheap. I picked him up. I paid like $12 from him in a couple leagues, maybe $20 at the most. But these are things that you got to stay on top of, because sometimes you get arrogant. You get arrogant and you're like, oh, everything's going smooth, and you miss these nitpicks, and you need to be on top of this, because, for instance, me right now, Alex Collins for me, depth piece. I got two dope running backs, but if anything happens to those running backs, I got a legitimate piece to plug in, and I'm still playoff bound. And where did I pick this guy up? Free agency. Maybe, like, it doesn't have to be via trade, but you can find pieces in free agency, and if you're on top of things, pick them up before anybody else notices you even pick them up.
Yep. I mean, definitely, right? Keeping an eye on the waiver wire, keeping an eye on the waiver wire, and making bids here, and keeping an eye on the injury reports and seeing who can be a little dinged up, right? Sprained knee or a sprained hamstring can turn into an IR spot. Just ask the CMC owners, right?
Yeah.
That we just found out, right? If you were in a redraft and you didn't put in all your money for a Chuba Hubbard, thinking, oh, CMC is going to be back. Guess what? He's now back on. He's on IR. He's about to miss 6 total weeks. So this is the kind of shit that's happening out there.
And let me say one more thing. This is why I stress at the beginning of our shows, during the off season, during the season, do not waste your FABB dollars on people you have not seen on the field. because you want to save your dollars for right now, especially if you're contending. And if you've been contending, that means you should have a full stack of dollars because you haven't been making moves. And these are the times where you spend those dollars. So you can pick up in super flex leagues a Geno Smith, which is a legit quarterback to have now that Russell Wilson's out 6 to 8 weeks, even though he's already practicing with his finger all dinged up. This guy's going to at least play 4 weeks. You know what I mean? And if you don't have a third quarterback, well, there you go. You have a legit third quarterback to fill in for those bye weeks, as opposed that you didn't before, and you waste your money on Xavier Jones from the Rams. You know, I mean, not Xavier Jones, the running back from the Rams that everybody was spending your money on with Jake Funk. And now you don't have any dollars to spend on a Geno Smith. You don't have any dollars to spend on depth pieces for your championship run. And this is why I stress that so much. All right, back to you, brother.
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, you've been saying it from the beginning. You know, that's how you run with the fab dollars, bro. And you know, I think the final, before we jump into the rebuilding, the final point I want to make on contending before I pass it over to you for your final thoughts, if you want, is take advantage of the teams that don't know they are good and take their players before they get good. That's what I wrote down. And what I mean by that is a lot of people just watch the records, right? If you know Dynasty, you know fantasy, you can look at someone's roster and you could see all the players that you want. You could see the players that are about to pop. Like we knew AB was going to blow up this year, okay?
Yes, sir.
Like we knew, okay, that, you know, Mike Evans was maybe going to have a down year, okay? Like we knew before that, Hawkinson when he was blowing up before his knee injury, okay? Swift, okay? So if you're good at this, you look at other people's teams, okay? And what you want to do is go get their veterans, all right? These teams that maybe are starting out 1-3, maybe they think that they're not good. You could see how they could become a danger to you in the future. You could see how they could become a danger to your team. That's when you go and you sneak in there and you maybe do a little small overpay, but you take away one of their veterans, like one of those players that are going to be pivotal on your team. You realize what their bye week problems are going to be. So while they're looking at 1 week ahead, you're looking 7 weeks ahead, and you're already calculating. At least what I'm doing, I'm already calculating what they're going to need to succeed, and I'm trying to take that piece from them before they even know that I'm doing it. So that's something I'm doing there. And the only final thing I'll tell you is, for me, if I'm contending, unless I'm winning the trade hands down, I'm not trading with the people who are also contending. Okay, I'm not with this buddy shit. I'm not here to help you out. I'm not trying to get I'm not trying to get an okay trade or an even trade. If you are standing in my way of a championship, I'm not here to give you an even trade. If you want to trade with me, I'm going to rob you, and you got to know that and let me rob you if you really want to make a deal with me. If not, go somewhere else, because I'm not trading with somebody that's in my way or that could come back and bite me down the road.
I like that. Me, my personal note is benefit from the panic. There will be guys that will go 0-3 and start panicking. Oh, I'm throwing everybody away. Flash sale, this and that. When they're 0-3, I've made the playoffs starting off 0-4, bro. You know what I'm saying? My cutoff for me, once I lose, let's say I'm 1-4 or 1-5, I'm already in rebuild mode. You know, I'm already looking towards next year. I'm trying to make things better. I'm trying to, if I have players, you know, that I need to trade that have high value, I'm already thinking about all that type of stuff. But for me, benefit from the panic. People will panic all the time and start trying to trade their players for, you know, first round picks. Like I said, not thinking if there's a first round lottery pick or if it's a late pick. And if you throw them a couple picks, a couple first, and they end up being late, like 110s and 112s, and you end up getting super studs for those guys because these guys are on a bad trip, panicking. Benefit from the panic. Benefit from the panic, folks. The only one that don't need to panic are you guys listening to us.
And you know what? That's a good life lesson, bro. In all honesty, bro. Don't panic, man. Stay calm. While everyone else around you is running around in fear or worry or concern, the people who succeed in Dynasty and in life are the people who stay calm and trust the process and keep moving forward, bro. Don't panic. Don't freak out, because when you freak out, that's when you get fucked up.
No, and you set yourself back and your team back for years. Years. So don't do it. Don't do it.
All right. So again, for the contending, again, look at your record. Look at the teams around you. Okay. Look at your all play record, the points for and the points against. Assess the situation. And if you determine that you are a contending team, okay, make a move. Be strong. Be aggressive. All right. Don't be the first one to act before everybody gets involved. Okay. And again, don't picks should not matter to you at this point. If you feel you got a championship window, all in, because winning championships is hard. Okay, it's hard. Look at Orange Bowl, man. Humble brag. I've been to the championship 4 years in a row, bro. I'm hoping this year's gonna be my fifth. I've only won it once, bro. Okay, so even getting there is fucking hard. Winning it is even harder, bro. So no risk it, no biscuit, bro. You agree?
No, I agree, and I love that phrase, bro. I love it, man. But
All
yeah,
right,
and
bro.
another thing is, man, look at your teams and look at your opponents or who you're playing with, man. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you might start a player just because of the name, and you're not paying attention to who you're starting, and maybe you're giving yourself room for error right there. If they're starting a good defense, you may want to start another player that's playing a bad defense, man. Just something I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, sometimes you got to play the matchups, right? You got to
Yeah,
play the
yeah,
matchups.
yeah,
All
man.
right. All right. So now we're going to run into the second section of this podcast, bro. We're going to be talking rebuilds. I love championships. I love doing championship runs, but I don't know about you, man, but there's something about a rebuild, bro. There's something. It reminds me of my days playing Madden franchise mode and selling everybody for draft picks and fucking and building up my team. I love it, bro. I love the rebuild. Obviously, the goal of the rebuild is to get to a contender, right? So there's that aspect of it. But for me, bro, I love rebuilding, bro. How about you?
Man, I love all aspects of the dynasty, man. Rebuilds are one of getting a team, and revamping it from the ground up and starting all over is so much fun. I love it, man. That's one of the biggest things of dynasty football that I love, man. For like probably a little later down the line in a couple shows in the off season, we're gonna get into orphans and we're gonna get into a bunch of stuff like that has to do with that. So that look out for that in later shows. But I love everything about it. You know what I'm saying? Even picking up bad teams that I don't even, I have nothing. I just pick up bad teams and I start doing moves. That's what got me through the damn pandemic, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I love it, man.
So for me, let me start off on this. For me, for me a rebuild, for people who don't know or who are not sure exactly, the biggest problem I see in Dynasty is that too many people think that they're one player away, bro, or two players away, and they never contend. They never move their team forward, and they're always buying players that are not going to really help them all that much. Even if it's a good player, you can buy a great player, but if your team does not have more than one great player, you're still going to suck. But you might be just good enough to, again, be that fifth place, that sixth place, right? Constantly getting bounced out of the playoffs or not even making it, but not having the 101. So you got to be honest with yourself, bro. And for me, bro, you got to embrace being the worst team, man, because the whole purpose of it is to get the 101. All right. Once you know that you are not going to contend, once you make that decision that, okay, I'm not winning a championship this year, then the next goal is to win the other championship, which is to get the 101, right? That's the next goal. If you can't win the championship, you got to win the 101. So people think that it's easy, but it's really not that easy because if you have some good players on your team that are not going to help you in the future, all they're doing is scoring points and fucking up your rebuild, bro. So you don't want to ruin your draft stock. Like Ricky Bobby said, if you ain't first, you last. So if I'm not first, I want to be last because I want to get moving quicker. I want the 101. I want the 201. I want the draft capital. What are your thoughts on that aspect of it?
Man, I was gonna mention that right now. I mean, if you're not contending, you want to finish last, but you want to win the toilet bowl. In a lot of leagues, when you win the toilet bowl, they give you the 113 or the 2-1, whatever it is that you want to call it, whatever makes you feel better out there, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, let's say you end up getting the 1-1 and you get the 113. You know what I'm saying? Tell me that's not beautiful if you're
It
rebuilding.
is. It is beautiful, but I would
Come on.
say you got to be careful trying too hard for the 113 that it screws up your chance of getting the 101 because the you a 113 is great, but I'd rather have the 101 than the 113 and the 104. Do
Well,
you
it
agree with
depends.
that?
It depends. It depends on the seating because if you finish in last place, but you win the toilet bowl, winning the toilet bowl should have messed with your playoff seeding. You know, you should have more balls to get the 1-1.
Correct, but you kept enough good players to win the toilet bowl, so you couldn't get the 1-on-1. You get where I'm
Oh,
coming from?
my bad. My apologies. I understand 100% what you're talking about. Well, that's another thing I want to talk about. You got to know when to sell these players. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say that you're not contending whatsoever. You're not contending. Your record's terrible, whatever. But you have a Dalvin Cook sitting in your roster. You know what I'm saying? You need to find. You need to go through everybody's roster. I need to find who else might have a lottery pick from a previous trade from a bad team in that league, who is contending. Okay, listen to what I'm telling you, and start sending that guy trades, so you can acquire another lottery pick and possibly a player or two for a Dalvin Cook for next year, and give the guy that's contending Dalvin Cook to win the championship, and in return you get a busload. And like you said in previous shows, right now's the time to get rid of Dalvin Cook. You've been saying it, you've been repeating it. So that's just an example that I'm bringing to light. And maybe another player on your squad that has massive value, and he's just sitting there. And let me tell you, these are one of the hardest things in Dynasty, because you probably really like that player and you love that player and you want to build around that player. But the thing is, the only way to build and rebuild is trading that player. So sometimes you got to make these hard decisions. And if you don't make these decisions, then you end up like the guy that Brandon says, making the 5th or the 16th, not contending for any championships. You're just there and donating money.
And don't get me wrong, we love the donators, right? We need donators, bro.
We need
Some
donations.
Some of you listening right now are donators, okay? And I'm not knocking you. When I started, I was a donator, okay? We all started donating. Nobody just walked in and said, I'm great at this, and just took off. We all started as donating our money, but some of us have stayed there while some of us has gotten better. So the purpose of this show, the reason that me and JP talked about doing a show like this, was to really give you insight from people who have won championships, who are contending a lot on championships, and really give you an insight, even if it screws up our game, if people that are in our leagues listen to us. You know, that's what we do. We're the men of the people, and we're sacrificing ourselves, falling on the sword, so that you people can go spread out into the world and join other leagues, and then take the money from the donors.
Yeah, and dominate. Yes. Because if you're on it like us and you're listening to us, we got the gems, baby, over here in Dynasty Life Miami. We got the gems.
So for me, you talked about it, right? You talked about getting a player, shopping it to a contender. I do a little bit of a different approach, and you tell me what you think, right? I do two approaches, bro. First thing I want to talk about, just like if you're a contender, just also rebuilding. You want to be the first guy or girl out there. You want to be the first person to decide to rebuild, okay? Because there's only so many contenders out there. So if you're late to the party, a lot of times all them picks, all those young upside players that you'd want to get have already been sold to the rebuilding teams that jumped in early. So, you know, like JP said, you don't want to panic too early, but you also don't want to hold out too long, because again, you could miss out on the bidding war, on the buying. Another thing, what I always like to do is, even if I'm a bad team, the first thing I try to do is trade with other bad teams first. Maybe someone that's worse than me. I look at their roster and I say, damn, these people have a chance to get a worse record than me, or worse points than me, and they can get in my way of getting a pick. Let me trade a player to them. Not a great player, and let me even trade it at a loss, a small loss. All right. Maybe this player's worth, 2/3 and I sell it for 1/3. Maybe this player's worth a second and I sell it for, he gives me a second, but I give a fourth back. So something that's a small loss, but I'm trading it to them. And again, some of these people who are bad teams, they don't know they're bad teams. These are donors. These are people that think they're one piece away from winning. So I'm going to trade something to them so that they get better. Then I get their pick, which is going to be a good pick anyways. And then I can get underneath them to help me get the 101, a better pick also.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I like that.
All right. Now, second, another one I use. You talked about going to a contender and selling Dalvin Cook. What I like to do is I like to go to the third or fourth best team, okay? and again, not all third and fourth best teams are created equal. I want a league that's kind of close. I want a clear number one, but maybe the number two, the number three, the number four are all within the window of being able to attack the number one. And I want to trade the third or the fourth best team, one of my pretty good to really good type of players, even if it's at a small discount. And the reason why I want to do this is if I make the third or fourth best team better, now I've created some pressure on the number one and the number two team where maybe they didn't want to trade. Maybe they thought their team was so good they didn't have to spend a lot. But now that I've given one of their major competitors a really good player, and now they can challenge them. Now all of a sudden, the number one, the number two, the number three teams, they're opening up their wallets a little bit more. They see these teams creeping at them. Okay, they've spent all this time building their team up. They have a nice record. They think they were about to make a run, and now they see this other team making moves, and now that fear starts to set in, that panic that you talked about. And now all of a sudden, boom, their purse strings open and they're willing to start trading. And I didn't give up one of my best players, but now I'm able to trade somebody else to them to start a bidding war. So that's something I kind of do regularly, and I sit back and kind of laugh because it happens every single time, and it works every single time.
No, that's a great strategy. That's a great strategy as well to get your league on and popping if it's dead. There's nothing going on. That's a great way to throw the fire in the hole and start the shit going, man. I like that shit. That's great.
Yeah, that's a B special. Okay,
Yes,
I just gave out one of my favorite things to do, bro.
B
So
special gems dropped here on Dynasty Life Miami, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, you're only gonna hear that here because it doesn't matter. We're gonna tell you our moves, even if you're in a league with us. We're still gonna tell you the truth, how we do it, how it goes. We're never gonna mislead you. We just want you to win money and stop donating it.
For sure. And look, like just an example, last year, bro, trading to a team who had Dak. Maybe this team, Superflex League, they had Dak. Dak goes down. All right, that's a team that you're supposed. Those are the type of teams that you target. You get them to give you Dak for a Brady, or you get them to give you a Dak for another player that's popping. That usually they would never trade away in a Dynasty Superflex League. But because Dak is injured and they are contending, they don't want to have a whole ruined season because of Dak's injury. So that's when you swoop in. You say, look, you give me Dak, I'll put him on my IR. All right, and I'm going to give you a Brady, or I'll give you an Aaron Rodgers. Maybe you even have to throw a little something on top. And what you're doing is you just gained 10 years of quarterback production. Okay, so those are the type of things you have to look out for. You see a David Montgomery go down, you go talk to that team. All right, or you see these type of players that are going out for the season, like a Cam Akers or a Dobbins back in the day, and then you swoop in with a running back who's not nearly as good, but they may be willing to trade it because they want to win they're trying to win a championship.
And that's what I was going to get at. Another great way to rebuild is what you just stated. That's how you start going rebuilding. You're not doing nothing for the year. So if you can get a player, for example, this year, J.K. Dobbins or a Cam Akers for cheap, that's gonna be a benefit to your team, a huge benefit. That's when you swoop in and you start throwing these deals, these type of deals, because these people are gonna want to keep on contending. Meanwhile, you're sneaking in through the back door and rebuilding with a very nice team. Because if you can pick up these players, like D-Monks was balling before he got injured. I happened to pick him up 2 weeks before he got injured. I got him on my IR now, but I'm keeping him. But if somebody would swoop in and try to offer me a guy and I was contending a little less better than him, but that he can produce points, and I was going for a championship, I'd probably do it.
Yeah. So okay, so now same thing like we did contending, man. We've outlined that we've looked at our team, we've broken down the league, we've determined, look, we're not competing this year. It could be because shit went south. Players are not doing like we thought they were doing. We could have got hit with injuries, 1,000,001 reasons, right? But now we've determined that we're not rebuilding. So what is a process what's one of the processes that you do when you've decided that you're rebuilding? You talked about, let's say you had Dalvin Cook, you're selling him. What else? What other things are you doing to try to drum up interest, or are you spamming the whole league with 1,000,000 trade offers for Dalvin Cook, or what type of players are you trying to move off of?
Well, all the players that are good, that are hold value at the present moment, that are not gonna have the same value next year. You gotta get rid of those guys. I'm holding on to the young players, like the first, second year players that are up and coming. I'm holding on to them. But if I can get rid of guys, sometimes it's not gonna happen like that. Sometimes you're gonna have to get rid of a guy that's in his prime, or getting to his prime, just because you need to move that piece to get other pieces. But for me, is you need to figure out, and if it hurts, because some of these players are probably your favorite players that you picked up in the first round of the startup, but you gotta know when to move these guys. And when you move these guys, what you get in return is gonna be a lot better for you at the end, because you're gonna stay young. Because if you don't do it, then what you're gonna have is what I call the geezer squad. You're gonna have to ride every single player till the wheels fall off. You're not gonna get any value for them, and then when it comes time to rebuild, you're gonna take forever.
Exactly, right? That's the point. Rebuilds, for me, a rebuild should not take longer than 2 years. Okay? If you do
Absolutely.
it right, you got to bottom out. You got to trade away all your assets. You got to get a shit ton of picks. You got to get a shit ton of young players, because you got to remember, you're not going to hit on every draft pick that you make. And
Of
you're
course not.
not every young upside player is going to turn out to be a superstar. So you can't just be doing it a little. You got to do a shotgun blast. I call it a shotgun blast. You got to grab everything that you can, because you have to understand there's going to be misses. There's probably going to be more misses than you hit. But when you do hit, you got to hit to the moon, right? So you got it. You need to get as much as you can. Some notes I wrote down here, bro. Well, who to sell? First and foremost, you got to sell running backs. Okay,
Hmm.
any running backs have a short shelf life as it is. So any running back over 26, if you're rebuilding, should be off your fucking roster. Okay, any running back that the starter went down and you got this guy like you got it out Alex Collins off the waiver. You're rebuilding, right? But you still get him off the waiver. Why? To trade him to somebody, even if you get a third round pick. Doesn't fucking matter. Alex Collins is 25. He's
Yep.
not going to be the starter long term. Flip him, burn it, churn and burn, right? Anybody. Now, like, I agree with you. Don't sell the 23-year-old. Don't sell the 24-year-old running backs unless you're given a Godfather offer, right? Unless somebody wants him so bad and you realize, okay, I can use this capital that they give me to get another running back next year if I have to. So, but I'm not putting those type of players on the block. I'm keeping those guys for the last minute. Another guy, right? Wide receivers. Wide receivers, they last longer, right? But you got to think, how long is your rebuild going to be? If you're doing a 2-year rebuild, then any wide receiver 28 and up, you should trade them off your team. And
Absolutely.
sometimes even if they're 27, depending on the wide receiver.
Yep.
Players like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Julio Jones, Tyler Lockett, Emmanuel Sanders. If you're a rebuilding team, these people should not be on your team. They're just fucking up your draft stock. You don't need them. They're not going to be there. They're not going to be. They're not going to be helping you when you're ready to make a run in 2 years.
Absolutely.
All right.
Brandon
Um,
dropping gems, baby.
I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. And the only other thing I say, I don't worry about QBs unless we're talking super flex. For tight ends, I think we beat this to like a dead horse, but I'll say it again. If you have Kelsey and you're not a contender, sell him, sell Kittle, and after that, you probably keep
Waller.
everybody else. You
Yeah,
know,
I would. So if you can get a shitload for Waller, I would do Waller too.
I put that too. I said maybe Waller can be sold for the right price, but
Yeah,
he
yeah,
is young. He is young enough that he could still be viable for your team in 2 years. But you're
yeah.
right. If you can get, he's one of those that's not a must sell. Kelsey, you got to sell him. Like, just
Yeah,
don't
he's
let him die.
32.
Don't
He's
let him die
32.
on your roster.
No, you
All right.
can't. You can't do that.
So let me ask you. All right, we're getting towards the end. We've talked about who do we sell. What are you looking for when you are selling? When you decided you're a rebuilding team, what are the assets that you're trying to get back from the other teams?
Okay, I'll give you a perfect little trade scenario here. Let's stay with the Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook for Antonio Gibson in a first. And if I can get Antonio Gibson in a first and second for Dalvin Cook, I'll do it in a heartbeat. I'm gaining a young all-purpose running back, and I'm getting a first and a second in return. That's the best scenario I can give you right now. If not, you want to go a little less, I would be going after James Robinson. J Rob, definitely be. If it's not uh Gibson, I would do A Rob. A-Rob for a first, second, and maybe another young up and comer. You know what I'm saying? Right there, I'm getting a player that's young back, 22, 23 years old back, and I'm getting a nice plethora of picks. Whether I hit on them or not, that's yet to be determined because that's in the future. But you're getting a young player that's going to produce it. You know, is going to give you the numbers. Plus, you're getting some picks. And that's what you want to do. You want to trade the old bucks for the young bucks and get picks with the young bucks. That's how I do it.
Yeah, I do it a little different. At least for me, I like that flip regardless. I mean, that's not something I would do if I'm not close to contending, but you're still getting 5 years on the dollar, right? You're still getting a 5 year run out of one running back to the other. You're getting some picks if you can flip that. So I think that's definitely a viable move. For me, I'm more when I'm rebuilding, I'm usually trying to rebuild around wide receivers. So I'm trying to get young wide receivers with high upside or players like we talked about on IR, like a Akers, a Dobbs, an ETN, or rookie wide receivers like Bateman, Elijah Moore, people like that, right? Players that when your rebuild is finishing in about 2 years, because we all know wide receivers, unless your name is Jamar Chase, wide receivers take a little time to to become something viable, right? So if you're planning a 2 year rebuild, Bateman, Elijah Moore, Rondell Moore, these are players that if they're actually going to be good, they're going to start becoming really good within the next 1 to 2 years. So that's what I'm looking for. Draft picks. Here's another little nugget, another little B special, right? What I'm looking for is if I am going to trade it to a team, if I'm going to trade a Dalvin Cook or I'm going to trade these other players, what I'm trying to do is I'm looking for this contending team that you said what'd you call it, the old fart team or whatever it was, the aging team. I'm looking for a team that's still a contender, but by next year, they're not going to be contenders anymore. Their whole
Yeah,
team
their
is going to
outlook.
fall up. Yeah.
Yeah, their outlook's not looking good. I get you.
So what I'm doing with those teams is instead of I'm trying to get their first round pick as part of the deal, but what I'm trying to do is get their first round pick from the year after. Okay. So for instance, if I've been selling a lot, and this is not just because the 2023 class is supposed to be good, which it is, but just in general, if I'm looking at a contending team, I'm selling them my player, but I tell them, hey, you know what? I don't want next year's pick. Give me the other pick. Give me the pick from the year after. Because if we're right and their team's gonna fall apart within a year, then guess what, bro? Instead of getting the 112 or 111 this year, you could be getting the 105 or the 104 next year because you were looking 2 years ahead and you looked at their team. They had an Adam Thielen, they had a Julio Jones, they had an Aaron Rodgers, they had these players that they had a Cook or a Kamara or a Derrick Henry. These players that they may be great this year, but dude, 28-year-old running backs on your team could fall apart. The injuries start to happen. You have a better chance of shit going south for those teams. So again, I'm looking a couple steps ahead, and I'm trying to get one of their picks. And people like that actually. They like the fact that they don't have to give up their next year's draft pick. They still get to draft. They get all excited. People are very short-sighted, in my opinion. They don't look that far ahead. And I like to take advantage of that. I like to take advantage of people's short-sightedness and get picks 2 years down the road because those picks are going to be even better, in my opinion.
Oh, and you're gonna entice the other owner to make a trade with you because, like you said, they're not looking towards the future. So they're like, "Oh, I don't gotta give up next year's pick. Oh, I'll figure out 2023. I'll trade for a first." Or they'll come up with an excuse in their head that they're gonna come up with another first round pick before that rookie draft comes, and it just entices the other owner that much more. And let me tell you, I'm glad that you dropped that nugget because that's something that I've been doing for the past couple of years because I've known that the 2022. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a weak class because we don't know yet, but I've also heard that 2023 is gonna be a lot better. So I've been doing that quite a lot, and I think that's a great nugget, man. I think that's a great way to look at it because you're already looking past the future. You're looking towards the following year, and to be honest with you, if it's an old fart team, they're not going to be contending. Bed riddled with injuries. Oh, they're not. They're going to be all messed up. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you're going to end up getting you might get a lottery pick out of that, and then it makes you. If you were winning the trade before you had the lottery pick, now you look like a fucking genius.
Exactly, exactly. And the only other nugget I would tell people that's rebuilding, a lot of contenders they like to do this little trick where they'll say, okay, I'll give you my first, and you give me your second back. They like to do that. They sell it as you're jumping up around. But let me explain something to you. If you're rebuilding right and you are tanking the right way, you should get the 201. And if the other team is going to win the championship, they're going to get the 112. So they just basically tricked you to give them a player or something like that, so that they give you the 112 and they get the 2-1 just to move up one spot. Okay, don't fall for that shit. Okay, don't do this trading a first and getting a second and giving away a second. Okay, if the person's a contender and you're a rebuild team, because it's not worth the jump up. It's not worth, but it looks good. Oh, I'm getting another first. I have my first, and now I'm gonna get their first. But what good is their first if it's gonna be a 111 and 112? And what good is giving up your second if it's gonna be the 201 or the 202? You're moving up one or two spots. It's stupid, but people do it all the fucking time. Don't do that shit.
Yeah, it's not a good way to get ganked. I agree.
All right. And I only got one more guy to talk about is another position that I like to focus on when I'm rebuilding. I like to get a bunch of young tight ends with upside. Okay, tight ends take time to mature, bro. All right, Waller took a while to break out. Kelsey took a while to break out. All these tight ends.
Look
Hawkinson
at
was breaking out before his knee injury, and he's a 3-year tight end. They take a couple years. Okay,
look at
so
Knox. Look at Dawson Knox now.
Dawson Knox. So buy a bunch of them, okay? Because they're cheap. People don't value cheap tight ends. People don't value tight ends until they become Waller, Kelsey, Hawk, and then all of a sudden they love them. But
Yeah, it's too late.
until that time they don't. So people will throw them in all the time. Up until this season, you could have got Knox off the waiver wire, or you could have got him thrown in a deal for a 3rd-round pick. Easy as fuck. So get all these tight ends. You're rebuilding anyway, so it doesn't fucking matter. They don't score a lot of points until they blow up anyway, so they're not screwing up your draft capital. So put them on your team, get them, and while you're rebuilding, start seeing which ones are starting to mature and get better. And all of a sudden, when you start ready to contend in 2 years, these tight ends, at least one of them, the odds are at least one of them, if you can get 3 of them on your team, one of them is going to take that next step. That could be Knox. That could be a Waller. That could be a Hawkinson or something, or even a one of those type of players. And you got them way before it happened because you had the patience and you're rebuilding and you had the patience to allow them to mature and grow and become a viable starter for your team.
Yeah, you got it, bro. Knocked it out. Knocked it
All
out the
right,
park,
bro.
champ.
I mean that's all I got. So again, I'm gonna just do a quick refresher, and then you added anything you want at the end. Rebuilding, be one of the first teams to do it. Don't let these people age out on your team. Okay, they're not doing you any good. I like JP says, you like these players, you like rooting for them. We know it's hard, okay, but that's the point, bro. No love, dog. No love. It's a business, bro. Churn and burn these mofos. They don't give a fuck about you. Don't give a fuck about them. Flip them and keep moving forward. And finally, get the young players, okay? Get young players with upside. Get draft picks. Get tricky with it, okay? Don't rush. You don't have to rush, bro. Take your time. You're not contending. You're not in a rush. Find the right spots. Wait for injuries. Look for the old teams and outsmart your opponent, bro. And I think that's everything on my end, bro. Anything else you want to add?
Well, like I said before, be a beneficiary of the panic. When other owners panic, keep your FAAB dollars for times like these right now when it comes to most to pick up your Alex Collinses or your Geno Smith, which are viable pieces that you're going to need for depth and to get to the playoffs and to possibly win a championship. Other than that, I'm good to go, man. And like Brandon said, we know it's hard, but you got to know when to get rid of your good players for their maximum value. It sucks, especially if you drafted them. It's like letting go of a puppy, but at the end of the day, they only have a small amount of shelf life depending on the position. So you need to make a move and you need to know when to make it. And
I mean,
that's it.
yeah, man. Hey, like you said, bro, it may be a puppy, bro, but look, bro, even old Yeller had to get put down when it was time, bro. All right, so you got to do what you got to do, bro. And I'm gonna leave it at that, bro. You have a good day. Good night to everybody. Holler at us, follow, and if you need anything, write in the comments. We'll answer questions, bro.
Yeah, have a great Football Fantasy Sunday tomorrow. Mad love, guys. God bless.
All right, peace.
Peace.